Hello, Divine Ones, and welcome to another episode of Self-Love Your Way There. Today, I want to share with you something that's actually really important and close to my heart, that's dear to an experience of mine, because we are in December, and in December of around this time, so many of us start to think about how we spent our last year. We start to review our life and how we lived our life in the past year. And we also start to look forward and project into what we want for our lives in the coming year, what we want to have, what we want to experience, what we want to release, what we want to change, what we want to heal. And so in that spirit of this particular season, I wanted to share with you a process that I use around this time of year to help me kind of understand what I want for myself going forward in the coming year. And it comes from some questions that I ask myself on my deathbed. I often say that dying taught me how to really live, and that is very true. And I want to share with you just how that is today. I want to speak about that a little bit, but it's not just about me and what I learned when I was dying, but actually how you can use these same awarenesses that I got on my deathbed to help you craft and manifest a more delicious life for yourself in the coming year, as well as really kind of tie up loose ends and wrap up the things that need to be wrapped up and let go of, and whatever clarity you need to really close out this year of 2021 with grace. So without further ado, I want to share with you a little bit about my experience. So many of you all have heard me talk about my near-death experience, but most of you have heard me talk about my second one. That's the one where I actually died and crossed over. But I had one before that that I don't speak about as much. That was a preface to that. And this is where I'm going to spend today's conversation around. And this is where I got the 5 questions. So what happened in my first near-death experience is that I was experiencing flu-like symptoms. And no matter what I was doing, whether I was drinking tea or, vegan diet or sleeping or resting or taking, Tylenol, whatever I knew at that time, my 23-year-old self knew to do to try and be well, it wasn't working. And so I ended up going to the emergency room to just kind of get checked out and try to get checked out for what I thought was the flu. But when I got there, instead of being diagnosed with the flu, the doctors diagnosed me with kidney failure, pneumonia, pancreatitis, anemia, a parasite in my stomach. And if all of that wasn't juicy enough already, they also diagnosed me with AIDS. And then they gave me 7 days to live. They thought that my situation had progressed to a point where they really weren't going to be able to help me much, and that they gave me about a week to live. And after they told me this, I was literally in the emergency room, in a private room in the emergency room. And so after they gave me all of this news, they left the room. And when they left the room, I was alone. Like, I didn't have any family with me there because I was in a city where my parents didn't live. My parents hadn't flown in yet. I really didn't know anybody in that city outside of the people that I worked with. And I had just moved to that city. So I was months there. And so I just moved there. So I was brand new there, didn't have anybody there. So I was alone. And I'm prefacing this because I believe being alone is what actually helped me have this type of experience. Because if I wasn't alone, I would have had to deal with my reaction to finding out that I was dying. I would have had to deal with my family's reaction. There would probably been a lot of hysteria around, and I wouldn't have been able to have kind of this soulless moment, this quiet, alone moment to go through what I went through. And what I went through was I had a life review. Now, life reviews are when your entire life kind of flashes before your eyes and you're able to see all the choices that you made and you didn't make. You're able to see where those choices led you. You're able to see how those choices affected the trajectory of your life and how you unfolded. And it's kind of like a bird's eye view of the entirety of your life. Now, this is very rare to have while you're still alive. Most of us have life reviews when we transition, like what you hear with many people who have died. When I worked as a medium, when I would talk to souls on the other side and people's loved ones who had crossed over to the other side, a lot of times they would talk to me about what their life review was like what they saw in their life, what they learned. And they were telling me this so that they could share with their loved one how they saw how this decision that they made affected their loved one negatively, or how it affected them positively, and that they were sorry for this, or that they were really grateful that they did this, and they were grateful that they had time with them. But the life review, is the purpose of that is for you to have an awareness of how you lived your life and the decisions you made and what they were able to do or not do for your expansion as a soul. I had a life review while I was lying there in the bed by myself. And what was happening when I was having this life review, where there were 5 questions that kept rotating over and over in my head as I was going through these scenes of my life, kind of as the guiding questions to look at the scenes of my life with. And the first question was I happy with the life that I had lived? So another thing to understand was, at that time, I had been on a spiritual path already for a few years. Yes, I was 23, but I had been on a spiritual path for a few years. So I wasn't really afraid of dying, because I believed that death wasn't an end. I believed that my soul was going to continue on after death, that I was going to transition to the other side. So there wasn't a lot of fear around this, but there was kind of this feeling of really looking at, was I ready to go? And so these questions were kind of questions that were coming up to help me assess, was I ready to go? And they were, again, was I happy with the life that I had lived? Had I ever truly been myself? Was the second question that kept coming up as I was reviewing these scenes. Had I ever really felt good about myself? Like, did I like and love who I actually was? Did I feel like I had lived my purpose? Did I feel like I had deposited on the planet the reason for which my soul had come here? And had I shared my heart with the people that I had loved, that I had really cared about? Did they know how I felt about them? Or was I withholding that from them somehow? And so these questions, as I were rotating over and over in my brain as I was looking at my life. And as I went through the life review, and after the life review was over, again, I wasn't afraid of death, but I began to have this immense feeling of terror and regret. I was not terrified that I was getting ready to die, but I was terrified that I was getting ready to die with the realization that I had never really lived, that I had never really fully lived my life and been myself. Because the answer to every one of those questions, was I happy with my life? Was I ever truly myself? Did I feel good about myself and like and love who I was? Did I feel like I had lived my purpose? And had I shared my heart with the people that I cared about? The answer to every single one of those questions was no, I had not. I wasn't happy with my life because I wasn't doing the things that I really wanted to do. I wasn't really seeing, there were friends that my friends weren't close in the city that I lived. Remember, I said I was there alone, and I felt lonely. And I'm more of a tribal type of guy. I really like having my friends around. I spent a lot of time with them, and all of them lived in other places, and I hadn't seen them in a while. There was a lot of aspects where I really hadn't been really happy with my life, and not just currently, but like looking at the past of how I was living the fullness of my life. There was a lot of my life where I just wasn't happy. I never really was who I was and did what I really wanted to do. Was I ever truly myself? The answer was no to that. You know, I had suppressed a lot of myself, a lot of my truth. I was suppressing my sexuality, for fear that I would be rejected by my family, for fear that I would be rejected by society, that I wouldn't get my dreams met if people knew my sexuality. I was also suppressing my psychic and intuitive gifts. I grew up in a very religious culture and home. So a lot of that was happening, and I just didn't feel like, I was ever truly myself in the world. And I didn't feel good about myself. I had a lot of shame. I had shame around my sexuality, and I had shame around my body. I had been teased a lot growing up, making myself made to feel like I was fat and unattractive. And so I never really felt good about myself. I didn't really like my body specifically. I didn't feel like I lived my purpose. There were dreams and goals that I had and longings and yearnings that were going unfulfilled. And I hadn't really shared my heart. There were a lot of people in my life that I really cared about that I really hadn't told them. And I really hadn't told them how much I cared for them and how much they meant to me and how grateful I was. And so I felt very regretful. And I made a decision then that I didn't want to die. Not because I was scared of death, but because I didn't want to die like that. I wanted to die saying I had really lived. And I wanted to be able to say yes to all of those questions. Yes, I was happy. Yes, I was myself. Yes, I felt good about myself. Yes, I lived my purpose. Yes, I shared my heart. And so I made a decision that I was going to live and that I was going to start living my life based on these questions, like trying to make sure that my life is a yes to all of these questions. And as you can see now, like that was in 2004, it's now to 2021, I definitely lived. And that has been how I've been living my life. Those have been my guiding forces. And I wanted to share these questions with you today so that you can use these, because I use these questions every year. These are my end of year questions where I look at the year past based on these questions. And then I look at my year forward based on these questions. And I look at how I want to shape my year. So for you, how do you use these questions to begin to craft a better life for yourself, a life that has meaning, a life that is fulfilling for you, and a life that if you died next year on your deathbed, you would feel fulfilled instead of be filled with regret? So here are the questions, and here's how you can use them to craft your new year. So the first one is, am I happy with my life? And so some more questions to ask with that, like, that's just put your hand on your heart. Am I happy with my life? Close your eyes and be honest with yourself. This is between you and you. This is not about me. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to write this anywhere or send this anywhere or share this with anybody else. This is between you and you. Am I happy with my life? Does my life fulfill me? Do I feel a deep sense of joy in my life? If yes, great. Then the question is, how can I feel even more fulfillment next year? How could I feel even more joy next year? What could I do to make me even more happier next year? If the answer is no, ask yourself, why not? Write that down. Get a pen and paper and do all of these questions, by the way, with pen and paper. So ask yourself, why does my life not fulfill me right now? Why do I not feel a deep sense of joy? Why am I not happy with my life? And then ask yourself, what can I do to feel more joy next year? What do I need to let go of to feel more joy next year? Because it's not just all about what we're adding into our lives and doing more of, but also what we need to let go of. I know for me, one of the things I had to let go of was saying yes so much to things I didn't want to do, and that meant I needed to say no more. But first I need to stop saying yes so much. One of the other things was, I was doing a lot of things in my life that I didn't really enjoy, and to start looking at how do I rearrange some of those things? How do I let those things go? And how do I start to pick up more things that I do? One of the things I picked up that I love to do is I love to write. I love to teach. I love to do videos. And so I started doing more of these things, and that made me happier. That increased my sense of joy and fulfillment, especially writing and teaching like this. I love it. I started a podcast. This all came out of these questions that I would ask myself every year. So that's for the happiness part, right? Am I happy with my life? Number two is, am I being my true self? Am I being my true self? If so, how can I be even more of myself next year? What can I do to be more of myself? What can I let go of to be more of myself? What do I need to do or let go of to become more of who I really am? Again, if I'm not my true self, why not? What am I afraid of? What's in my life currently that I feel is keeping me from being my true self? How can I let go of that next year? What all do I need to let go of next year to become more of who I am? See, that's really the thing with becoming more of ourselves, our true selves. It's not so much about what you need to add into your life. It's about what's in your life that's covering up who you are. And what you'll find is when you release that, you take that stuff off of you, like blankets covering you up your light, really like covering up the light of who you are. The key to shining your light and becoming who you truly are really is to release all that stuff that's covering you. So look at like, what are you doing? What is in your life? What relationships are in your life? What behaviors are you doing? What thoughts and beliefs are you holding that are suppressing who you are, that are covering up who you are? And how can you release that next year? What help do you need? This is a great question too. What help do you need to help you with this next year? I know for me, I've hired coaches, I've worked with therapists, I've worked with healers, I've worked with shamans, um, I've worked with energy healers, all, to help me in it. Hey, throwing my hat in here, if you're a person who's having a problem becoming your true self, I highly recommend, working with me some type of way. Look at getting my course, Self-Love Academy. There's a whole section in there about becoming your true self. But what type of help and support do you need in this? We're not supposed to do this life alone, especially when you're doing deep healing work, especially when you've been living years and years of not being yourself. You may need external support in helping you do that. And there's no shame and only medicine in reaching out for help. So that's question number 2. Number 3, do I feel good about myself? Do I like who I am? If so, how can I increase this feeling next year? What can I do to expand this? I know for me, there are many different exercises I do to expand the feeling of cherishing and appreciating and feeling good about myself and celebrating myself. I keep a self-appreciation journal where I just write in that journal things I really love about myself every day. I look in the mirror and do mirror work every day where I look in my eyes and I tell myself I love me, and I tell myself, 3 things I really celebrate about myself. I make sure that I celebrate my wins and successes, no matter how small they are. There's a lot of different ways that we can do a lot of different things to cherish ourselves, to feel good about ourselves. Also, that's because I've been doing this work for a while. So those are some things. But in the beginning, one of the first things I had to do was stop judging myself, stop shaming myself, stop comparing myself. Like if you just make that your New Year's intention, you're going to see a tremendous transformation in your life when you just release the judgment and the shame and the comparison. So what do you need to do, right, to feel better about it? What could you do? What are some things you could do next year that will help you feel better? I just gave you some examples, by the way. You can try those. I highly recommend mirror work. You could get therapy. You could get my course, Self-Love Academy. Again, that was directly designed to help you do that. There's many different resources out there, but tune into your soul and see what are some steps that you can take next year to amplify your feeling of appreciation and love for yourself, so that you can begin to like yourself, so that you can begin to have an unconditional positive regard for yourself, an unconditionally positive relationship with yourself instead of a warring relationship with yourself. All right, number 4, uh, do I feel like I'm living my purpose? Do I feel like I'm living my purpose? And I don't mean like, do I feel like I'm doing the work that I'm here to do? I mean, do I feel like I'm living a life of meaning? Do I feel like my life nourishes me and fulfills me? Do I feel like I'm moving towards my dreams and my goals? If not, why not? What's in the way of that? What is keeping you from that? Is it a fear? Is it a relationship? Is it a life situation? And if it is, what can you do to release or remove or change that situation or relationship or fear so that you can begin to move in the direction of fulfilling your purpose? So that you can, by the way, when you're headed in the direction of your purpose, you begin to be happier as well. I know for me this past year, one of the things I did for myself is one of the things I love that gives me meaning and that feeds me and that nourishes me is poetry. And so I started writing a poetry book. This is probably the first place I mentioned that, as a matter of fact. But I am writing a poetry book of collection of poems from me, but that I am planning to release sometime next year. And every day I write a new poem, and it has just been a delicious fulfillment for me. So for you, what is that? What can you do to add more meaning to for your life? And what can you do to move in the direction of your purpose? You don't necessarily have to act like you're fulfilling your purpose right now, but at least that you are moving in the direction of your purpose, of what you feel called to do and be here on the planet. And then the last question is, have you shared your heart with the people you care about? Have you shared how you truly feel for them? If so, how can you do even more of that next year? If not, why not? What has stopped you from sharing your heart? What has stopped you from saying how you really feel? One thing that I began to do this year, that I'm going to do more of next year, that I really love, has really been a really fun exercise for me. And it's been fun just because the feeling of it, every time I do this, I get a charge energy in my energy field, but also seeing the faces of the people who I give this to and hearing their response gives me another it just goes straight into the heart. And that is all the people that I care about that are in my circle and that I have some type of personal interaction with frequently. I have written them gratitude letters, personalized gratitude letters, telling them what I'm really grateful about, what I really love about them, how I really care about them. And it has just been delicious. This process has been so delicious. And I'm definitely going to continue this next year. As a matter of fact, I might try to do it every day next year. But to see how people, one thing I found with this is that people really don't know how you feel about them until you tell them. They always appreciate it. And they always seem very moved by it. No matter what it is you say, no matter how small it is you think it is for what you're saying, they always seem very deeply moved and appreciative of it. They always are surprised because, again, people don't really truly know how you feel about them until you tell them. And it's deepened the love we share between each other. It's deepened our relationships by me doing this. So I highly recommend this practice if you want, but you can think of other practices for you to do. But these are the 5 questions, and these are how you process them to look at how you want to craft your next year, right? You want to craft your next year into being more happy. You want to craft it into becoming more of who you truly are. Craft it into feeling good about yourself, into living more of your purpose, and into sharing more of your heart with those you care about. This is what life is really about, by the way. This is what my life review showed me, is that these things are what our life is really about. This is why we're really here. It wasn't, notice one thing I didn't, in my life review, the questions that I didn't get asked was like, should I have worked more? Should I have clocked in more hours? Or should I have stressed out more? Or should I try to make more money? These were the things that were really important. Being happy, being my true self, feeling good about myself, living my purpose, and sharing my heart. So take these things into account when you're starting to look at what you want for yourself next year, and use them to help you live a more delicious life experience. Because this is what I learned from dying. was the key to having a delicious life. Being happy, being your true self, feeling good about yourself, living your purpose, sharing your heart. I hope this has helped you in some way begin to do this more. And I hope you use this practice sometime this month before the new year comes so that you can step into the new year with clarity about how you want it to go and what you want to do. If you do this, I'd love to hear what you get from it. Come back to this video and leave me a comment underneath and let me know what you got from it. Until next time, as always, or by the way, if you're listening on the podcast, leave me a comment and let me know some type of way if you did this exercise and what you got from it. As always, I love you. Now go love yourself. Bye.